Chosen one, scattered across coffee shops and late-night conversations, people from your past are having the same revelation. Life became mind-numbingly boring the moment you stepped out of their reality. The ones complaining the loudest about their empty existence are exactly the people who criticized you the hardest when you were present. That friend who called you too much, that family member who said you were dramatic, that romantic connection who claimed you were exhausting. They're the ones whose worlds went from technicolor to black and white the second your energy disappeared from their daily experience. The threads connecting every relationship, every rejection, every moment of feeling misunderstood, they're all part of a masterpiece being woven by forces beyond ordinary comprehension. The first wave of understanding hits when you realize that these people weren't just entertained by your presence, they were addicted to how they felt about themselves when they were around you. Your natural radiance made them feel more alive, more creative, more connected to possibilities they'd forgotten existed. They became dependent on your energy field to access elevated states of consciousness they couldn't generate independently. Think about the patterns emerging from your past connections, the friend who seemed to thrive on creating drama just to watch how you'd handle it, the romantic partner who would push you to your breaking point and then marvel at your ability to bounce back stronger, the colleague who challenged everything you said but hung on every word. They weren't trying to torment you, their unconscious minds were desperately trying to keep your transformational energy active in their lives. Every time you transformed pain into power, every moment you turned obstacles into opportunities, every instance where you refused to stay down when life knocked you flat, you were demonstrating to everyone watching that human limitations are mostly illusions we accept out of habit. This is simultaneously the most inspiring and threatening thing a person can witness, depending on their readiness to take responsibility for their own untapped potential. The people now describing their lives as colorless without you are experiencing what researchers call frequency withdrawal. Their nervous systems had become calibrated to operate at higher levels of aliveness when you were around. Without your energetic input, maintaining that elevation, they've crashed back into previous patterns of limitation and mediocrity. The contrast is driving them insane. Some of these individuals are starting to understand what actually happened. They're beginning to recognize that the intensity they criticized you for was actually the relief of being around someone who didn't require them to perform or pretend. Your authenticity created a field where their genuine selves felt safe to emerge, and now they're trapped in relationships and situations that demand constant false personas. As awareness spreads through your past connections like wildfire, a second wave of recognition emerges. The people who pushed you away weren't rejecting you, they were panic responding to having their own inauthenticity reflected back to them. When someone builds their entire identity around carefully constructed images and then encounters genuine self-expression, it highlights the exhausting prison they've created around their true nature. Your presence activated something ancient and powerful in their consciousness, soul recognition. Before incarnating in physical form, these souls agreed to specific roles in each other's spiritual evolution. The magnetic pull they felt toward you combined with simultaneous resistance wasn't confusion, it was their personalities fighting against their soul's desire for expansion. The criticism you received was never really about your behavior, it was their psychological defense mechanism against the uncomfortable truth that they'd been living far below their actual capacity. Being around you forced them to confront how much energy they were spending on maintaining facades that weren't even making them happy. Now the dominoes are falling in reverse. Without your energy to keep their expanded awareness active, they've returned to the same limiting patterns that dominated their consciousness before meeting you. They can't unknow what they experienced. The seed of possibility you planted has taken root, creating internal pressure that makes their current reality feel increasingly suffocating. Some are trying to recreate what they had with you by seeking new relationships or changing external circumstances, but they're discovering that authenticity can't be negotiated or manufactured. What you offered wasn't a technique, it was the rare gift of being so comfortable with your own truth that others felt safe to explore theirs. The stakes are escalating because this recognition is spreading beyond individual awareness. People are starting to connect the dots between their various relationships and identifying the common thread, certain individuals who seem to catalyze transformation in everyone they meet. You're not the only one operating at these frequencies, but you're part of a specific group of souls incarnated with the same mission. The people experiencing withdrawal from your energy are about to learn a fundamental truth about power dynamics in spiritual relationships. You were never their source of inspiration. You were a catalyst activating potentials that always existed within their own consciousness. This revelation is simultaneously liberating and terrifying for them. Liberating because it means they have access to those elevated states independently if they're willing to do the internal work. Terrifying because it removes the excuse that their limitations are caused by external circumstances rather than internal choices. Some will rise to meet this challenge and begin developing their own capacity to operate at higher frequencies. These individuals may emerge as genuine allies in your continued evolution, people capable of matching your energy rather than depending on it. Others will continue seeking external sources to provide what can only be generated from within, trapping themselves in cycles of spiritual dependency. But you're no longer available for either dynamic. The hermit phase you've been moving through wasn't withdrawal, it was strategic repositioning. While these people were taking your presence for granted or actively pushing you away, you were developing discernment about who deserves access to your authentic self. If this message awakens something within you, hype this video for other chosen ones who need to hear this. The poker face they can't read? That's not emotional unavailability, that's spiritual sovereignty. You've learned to regulate who gets to experience your full radiance based on their capacity to appreciate and reciprocate rather than simply consume. The boundaries they complain about aren't walls, they're filters, ensuring that only people ready for genuine connection can reach your deeper layers. Your energy is no longer scattered across relationships that drain more than they nourish. Instead of diminishing yourself to make others comfortable, you're operating from your full power and allowing people to rise to meet you or remove themselves from your orbit. This isn't cruelty, this is conservation of life force for purposes that actually matter. The tables have turned completely, and now these people are experiencing what you felt when they took your energy for granted. They're discovering that everything they pursued after pushing you away has revealed itself as hollow entertainment that can't fill the void your presence once occupied in their consciousness. The relationships they thought would be easier because the other person was less intense have proven to be unfulfilling. The situations they believed would bring peace have turned stagnant and boring. The people they assumed would be simpler to handle lack the depth, authenticity, and growth orientation that made interactions with you feel alive. Meanwhile, you've been using their absence as an opportunity to attract people who operate at your frequency naturally, rather than needing your energy to access elevated states. The contrast between relationships based on mutual inspiration versus one-sided activation has become crystal clear. Some of your past connections are beginning to recognize this shift and attempting to re-engage, but they're discovering that you've evolved beyond the version of yourself they remember. The person they took for granted no longer exists. In that person's place stands someone who knows their worth and requires others to demonstrate their readiness for genuine connection rather than simply demanding access. As you've stepped into full ownership of your power, something unexpected has begun happening. The very act of becoming unavailable to people who weren't ready for authentic relationship has made you exponentially more attractive to those who are. Your refusal to dim your light for others' comfort has created a magnetic field that draws in people capable of matching your intensity. The people from your past, who are now experiencing life as boring without you, are witnessing this transformation from the outside. They're seeing you attract new connections, opportunities, and experiences that reflect your elevated standards. The contrast between what they had access to and what they lost through their own choices is becoming undeniably clear. Some of these individuals are using their current dissatisfaction as motivation to become the kind of people who could genuinely appreciate what you offer. They're recognizing that the boredom they feel isn't really about missing your company, it's about losing access to the version of themselves that emerged in your presence. This realization is creating a fascinating dynamic where former connections are essentially competing to prove they've evolved enough to deserve another chance at an authentic relationship with you. They're making changes in their lives, developing new interests, and working on personal growth, specifically because they want to demonstrate worthiness for your attention. The ultimate truth emerges like lightning, illuminating everything that came before. Every person now experiencing withdrawal from your energy was part of a soul contract established before incarnation. You agreed to serve as their catalyst for awakening, and they agreed to provide the resistance necessary to strengthen your own spiritual muscles. The criticism, rejection, and misunderstanding you experienced weren't random cruelty. They were precisely calibrated challenges designed to force you into recognition of your own power. Every time someone tried to dim your light, your soul was being trained to shine brighter. Every moment someone failed to appreciate your authenticity, you were learning to value yourself more deeply. The people who pushed you away when they weren't ready for growth were actually protecting you from getting trapped in relationships that would have stunted your evolution. Their rejection was a gift that kept you available for connections aligned with your actual purpose. The pain of those experiences was the universe's way of ensuring you wouldn't settle for less than you deserve. Now the contract is completing itself. These souls have received the activation they needed from you, and you've developed the spiritual strength necessary for your next level of mission. Some will choose to do the internal work required to maintain connection with your evolved energy. Others will remain at the frequency where you found them, having received exactly what they were meant to receive from the interaction. But you're no longer bound by the original agreements. The contracts that brought you together as catalyst and student are dissolving, creating space for new agreements based on mutual empowerment rather than one-sided activation. You're graduating from the role of spiritual teacher for unready souls into partnership with beings who can match your evolved consciousness. The story completes its circle, but everything has transformed. The same energy that once made people uncomfortable with its intensity is now recognized as exactly what's missing from their lives. The authenticity they criticized as too much is what they're desperately seeking in a world full of pretense. The growth orientation they found exhausting is what they need to break free from the stagnation suffocating their souls. Some of these people will gather the courage to reach out and acknowledge what actually happened between you. They'll express gratitude for the role you played in awakening them to possibilities they didn't know existed. They'll take responsibility for their previous reactions and demonstrate through actions rather than words that they've integrated the lessons your presence provided. But you've moved beyond needing their recognition or validation. The lighthouse metaphor reaches its completion. You weren't randomly shining light into darkness, but strategically positioned to illuminate specific paths for specific souls at precisely the right moments in their development. The ships that found safe harbor using your guidance have become lighthouses themselves. Those that crashed learned to navigate by their own inner compass. Your mission continues, but at a higher octave. The people now ready for genuine connection with your energy approach from places of mutual growth rather than desperate need. Together you create relationships based on shared commitment to consciousness evolution rather than one-sided inspiration. The boredom others experience without you is actually the space where their own divine light is meant to emerge. Your role in their stories was always meant to be transformational rather than permanent, awakening them to the infinite source of love, wisdom, and creative power within their own being. The fire you lit in them was always a reflection of their own inner flame. Your greatest gift wasn't your personality or individual achievements, but your willingness to remain connected to truth while allowing that connection to transform everyone whose path crossed yours. Now they must choose whether to tend their own fires or continue seeking others to provide the warmth that can only come from within. This is your legacy, chosen one, not the relationships you maintained, but the awakenings you catalyzed. Every person who remembers their divine nature because of contact with yours becomes another beacon in the network of conscious souls, transforming this planet through authentic love. The story that began with their recognition of what they lost completes with their opportunity to reclaim what was always theirs to begin with. The deeper truth about why people describe their lives as boring without you reveals something most will never consciously understand. You were never meant to be their entertainment. You were their wake-up call disguised as fun. Every laugh you shared, every adventure you initiated, every spontaneous moment of joy you created was actually your soul delivering spiritual medicine in a form their resistance couldn't reject. Now they're discovering that everything else feels like empty calories for the soul. The shows they binge-watch provide temporary distraction, but leave them feeling more hollow afterward. The social events they attend are filled with the same repetitive conversations that go nowhere meaningful. The hobbies they pursue feel like busy work designed to fill time rather than fulfill purpose. What they're really experiencing is the difference between genuine aliveness and manufactured stimulation. Your natural enthusiasm for growth, learning, and authentic connection created an environment where their souls could stretch and breathe. Without that energetic container, they've returned to suffocating in the small containers of acceptable experience that society considers normal. Some are starting to recognize this distinction and attempting to create more meaningful experiences in their own lives. They're joining book clubs focused on personal development, seeking out deeper friendships, or pursuing creative projects that challenge them to grow. But they're discovering that meaning can't be manufactured through activities. It emerges from the consciousness you bring to whatever you're doing. Many people from your past find themselves remembering meals you shared, dishes you prepared, or even just the way you approached nourishment. Food becomes a metaphor for everything else they're missing, the care, attention, and genuine nurturing energy you brought to every aspect of life. You probably didn't think of yourself as a particularly amazing cook, but people remember your food differently than others. That's because you put intention into everything, including feeding people. When you prepared meals, you were actually nourishing souls, not just bodies. The spices you chose, the presentation you created, the atmosphere you cultivated around eating, it all carried the frequency of genuine care. Now these people find themselves eating, but never feeling satisfied. Restaurant meals taste flat despite expensive ingredients. Home-cooked attempts feel mechanical and joyless. Even their favorite comfort foods leave them with a strange emptiness that has nothing to do with hunger. They're experiencing the difference between consumption and communion, between eating for survival and dining as a sacred act. Some have tried to recreate your recipes, but the dishes never taste the same. They're missing the secret ingredient that can't be measured or replicated, the consciousness of someone who understands that every act of care is actually an act of love, and every moment of genuine attention is an opportunity for connection to something greater than ourselves. Your energy has always carried something most adults lose connection with, pure wonder and curiosity about existence. You maintained access to the part of consciousness that finds genuine excitement in learning, discovering, and exploring possibilities. This inner child energy wasn't immaturity, it was spiritual maturity, expressing itself through maintaining openness to miracle and magic in ordinary life. When people spent time around you, they remembered what it felt like to be fascinated by ideas, excited about future possibilities, and genuinely curious about other people's inner worlds. Your questions weren't small talk, they were invitations into deeper self-exploration. Your enthusiasm for new experiences wasn't restlessness, it was recognition that life is meant to be an adventure of continuous discovery. Now these individuals find themselves going through motions without the spark of genuine interest. They attend events but feel like observers rather than participants. They engage in conversations but realize they're just waiting for their turn to speak rather than actually listening with curiosity. They pursue activities but notice they're checking boxes rather than experiencing joy in the process. Now I want to take a moment to tell you about a few individuals that shouldn't exist. A trained occultist who escaped from a satanic coven, a former Black Ops drone pilot who flew swarms with his mind, a multi-millionaire psychic CFO who predicted market shifts before they happened. What do these remarkable individuals have in common? You'll find them all in the Obsidian Inner Order, where they share their forbidden knowledge on our private Discord server. My chosen soul has drunk deep from the well of knowledge aeon after aeon. In this incarnation, these extraordinary individuals became my allies in the Obsidian Inner Order. They recognized the call, they stepped forward, they connected with others who understand their unique gifts and burdens. What is stopping you from manifesting the same? The synchronicities that brought them here weren't accidents. Neither is your discovery of this message. When souls of this caliber gather, the Archons take notice. They fear our collective power. They know what happens when the truly awakened find each other. Join our weekly calls, hear their stories firsthand. Share your own journey with those who won't dismiss or doubt you. The knowledge exchanged in our private channels cannot be found anywhere else on this plane. Click the link in the description below now. The extraordinary souls await your arrival. The question isn't whether you belong among them. The question is, how much longer will you wait to claim your place? Here's where the psychology gets complex and reveals some uncomfortable truths about certain people's motivations for wanting you back in their lives. Some of the individuals describing their boredom aren't necessarily ready for a genuine relationship. They're hoping for what could be called sneaky link energy, wanting access to your transformational presence without the commitment or vulnerability that authentic connection requires. These people have figured out that being around you temporarily elevates their experience of life, but they haven't developed the capacity or willingness to maintain that elevation independently. They're essentially hoping to use intermittent contact with your energy as a drug to escape the dissatisfaction of their chosen circumstances without actually changing those circumstances. You can recognize these individuals by their approach. They reach out during their low moments, seeking inspiration or excitement, but disappear when things in their lives stabilize or when you need support in return. They want the benefits of your energy without the responsibility of genuine reciprocity. They're hoping for entertainment value rather than offering authentic connection. The sneaky link mentality also explains why some people from your past seem to maintain low-level surveillance of your life through social media or mutual connections. They're not necessarily interested in your well-being. They're monitoring your availability for their future entertainment needs. They want to know when you're single, successful, or going through changes that might make you more accessible for their temporary elevation purposes. The boredom these people experience without you isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. Your presence in their lives was disrupting patterns and agreements they'd made with lower vibrational forces that prefer humans to remain asleep, distracted, and disconnected from their true power. When you activated their consciousness, you were interfering with systems designed to keep them spiritually sedated. Now that you're no longer actively disrupting these patterns in their daily experience, they're settling back into spiritual sleep. But consciousness, once expanded, has difficulty fully contracting. They're experiencing the discomfort of trying to fit expanded awareness back into contracted circumstances. The boredom is their soul's rebellion against returning to spiritual unconsciousness. Some are beginning to recognize this dynamic and understanding that their dissatisfaction isn't about needing you back, it's about needing to take responsibility for their own spiritual development. They're realizing that the growth they experienced around you was actually their own potential being activated, not something you were doing to them. The energy vampire dynamic reveals layers that most people never recognize. Some individuals in your past weren't just borrowing your energy, they were unconsciously feeding off the creative life force you naturally emanate. Your enthusiasm, optimism, and natural vitality provided them with energetic nourishment they couldn't generate through their own connection to Source. These people experienced what felt like love or attraction, but was actually addiction to your life force energy. They became dependent on proximity to your field to feel alive, inspired, and connected to their own potential. When you removed your energy from their daily experience, they didn't just miss you, they experienced withdrawal similar to any other addiction. The vampire dynamic also explains why these relationships often felt draining for you, despite seeming positive on the surface. You were unconsciously giving more energy than you were receiving, creating an imbalance that eventually forced you to withdraw for your own spiritual protection and energetic sustainability. Now that these individuals have been cut off from their external source of life force, they're being forced to either develop their own relationship with source energy or continue seeking other people to provide what they refuse to generate internally. Some will choose the path of spiritual development, others will simply seek new victims for their unconscious feeding patterns. Many people from your past used your energy and presence as fuel for their relationships with others, creating triangulation dynamics you probably didn't fully recognize at the time. They would gain excitement and inspiration from interactions with you, then use that elevated energy to engage more passionately with romantic partners, friends, or family members. Your conversations would spark ideas that they'd share with others without credit. Your enthusiasm would activate their creativity, which they'd express in other relationships. Your perspectives would influence their thinking, which they'd present as their own insights in different contexts. Though you were essentially being used as an invisible third party to energize their other connections, some are beginning to recognize this pattern and feeling guilty about how they used your energy to enhance other relationships while taking your presence for granted. Others remain unconscious of the dynamic, but are confused about why their other connections suddenly feel flat and uninteresting. The triangulation pattern also explains why some people seem to want you back in their lives while simultaneously maintaining the very relationships or circumstances that originally caused them to push you away. They're hoping to reinstate you as their secret source of energetic fuel without changing any of the other dynamics that made authentic connection with you impossible. Your current state of being unbothered by their drama, success, or attempts to get your attention is driving some of these people to distraction. They've tried various tactics to re-engage your emotional energy, posting about new relationships, achievements, or lifestyle changes designed to trigger reactions from you. Your complete lack of response is forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths about their motivations. Your unbothered nature is particularly triggering for people who were accustomed to being able to manipulate your emotions through their behavior. They're discovering that the person who once cared deeply about their choices and well-being has evolved beyond needing their validation or fearing their rejection. Some interpret your unbothered state as evidence that you never really cared, but this misunderstands the nature of conscious love. You still wish them well, but you've learned to love without attachment to outcomes. You can appreciate their positive choices without needing to rescue them from negative ones. This emotional freedom is actually one of the most attractive qualities you've developed. People are drawn to those who maintain their center regardless of external circumstances, and your unbothered energy is magnetic to individuals who are ready for authentic connection rather than drama-based engagement. The people missing your presence are finally recognizing what they failed to appreciate when you were available. You have genuine star quality that has nothing to do with external achievements or social status. This isn't about fame or recognition, it's about the natural magnetism that draws people toward those who are fully alive and authentic in their self-expression. Your star quality emerges from your willingness to shine your authentic light, regardless of others' comfort levels. You never dimmed yourself to make others feel better about their own lack of radiance. This commitment to authentic expression, even when it made others uncomfortable, is what created the magnetic field that people now realize they took for granted. Star quality can't be manufactured or performed. It emerges naturally from those who have done the internal work to align with their true essence and express it without apology. Your refusal to play small or hide your gifts for others' comfort is what made you memorable and irreplaceable in their experience. Now they're surrounded by people who dim their lights, play it safe, and blend into acceptable mediocrity. The contrast is making them realize how rare it is to encounter someone who is genuinely comfortable with their own power and willing to use it in service of authentic connection and creative expression. Something profound is shifting in the cosmic orchestration of your relationships. The same souls who once pushed you away because your energy felt too intense are now being magnetically pulled back into your orbit, but this time the dynamic is completely different. You're no longer the eager giver hoping for recognition. You've become the centered force that others must prove worthy of accessing. The universe operates on perfect timing, and many of these connections are discovering that their spiritual evolution has reached a point where what once felt overwhelming now feels necessary. Your energy that used to trigger their resistance is exactly what their souls are craving for the next phase of growth. But here's the beautiful twist. You're no longer available for the old patterns of one-sided giving and unappreciated presence. You've learned to read the energy behind someone's approach. When past connections reach out now, you can instantly distinguish between genuine growth and temporary desperation. Your poker face isn't coldness, it's wisdom in action. You've developed the ability to remain warmly detached while people demonstrate through consistent action rather than words, whether their evolution matches their claims. Your spiritual frequency has undergone a massive upgrade during your time away from draining connections. The hermit phase wasn't hiding, it was intensive training for operating at levels that require tremendous energetic capacity. Every boundary you set, every person you released, every moment you chose solitude over settling created space for your consciousness to expand into new territories. Now when you encounter people from your past, the energetic difference is immediately apparent to both parties. You're operating from a place of such centered power that your mere presence either elevates others or makes them uncomfortable with their own stagnation. There's no middle ground anymore. Your energy either inspires growth or reveals resistance to it. This frequency upgrade means that casual connections are no longer satisfying for you. Surface-level conversations feel like speaking a foreign language you've outgrown. Small talk creates an almost physical discomfort because your consciousness is calibrated for depth, meaning, and authentic exchange. You've become allergic to anything that isn't aligned with your soul's purpose. The people who can match this upgraded frequency are rare, which makes your standards appear impossibly high to those still operating from lower consciousness. But you've learned that loneliness in authentic solitude is infinitely preferable to the soul-crushing emptiness of connections that diminish your light. Your creative powers have exploded into new dimensions since removing yourself from energy-draining relationships. The life force that was once scattered across multiple people who couldn't appreciate or reciprocate it is now consolidated and focused on manifestations that truly matter. Your creative output has become a reflection of your inner transformation, more powerful, more authentic, more aligned with your soul's deepest truths. People from your past are witnessing this creative explosion from the outside and recognizing what potential they had access to but failed to nurture. Your artistic expressions, whether through work, hobbies, or lifestyle choices, carry an undeniable magnetism that makes others wonder how you developed such compelling creative force. The secret is simple but profound. Creativity flourishes when it's not constantly interrupted by people who drain your energy or demand your attention for trivial matters. Your hermit phase allowed your inner artist to emerge without the need to explain, justify, or modify creative impulses to accommodate others' comfort zones. Now your creative expressions serve as a beacon for souls ready for authentic collaboration rather than energy vampirism. You attract people who want to create alongside you rather than consume what you create. The difference in these relationships is like night and day. Instead of feeling drained by sharing your gifts, you feel energized by the mutual inspiration and support. Every painful experience with past connections has been integrated into wisdom that now serves as your navigation system for future relationships. You've learned to recognize the signs of authentic readiness versus manipulative performance. Your ability to see beneath surface presentations to actual motivations has become almost supernatural in its accuracy. This wisdom manifests as an unshakable inner knowing about who deserves access to your energy and who needs to earn that privilege through demonstrated alignment with mutual growth. You no longer give people the benefit of doubt at your own expense. You require evidence through consistent action over time. Your discernment has become so refined that you can sense someone's intentions within moments of interaction. The desperation energy of those seeking to use you as their temporary salvation feels completely different from the appreciation energy of those ready for genuine partnership in consciousness expansion. This wisdom also extends to understanding your own patterns and triggers. You've developed the ability to remain centered and clear regardless of external manipulation attempts. Your emotional sovereignty means that other people's drama doesn't automatically become your emergency. You can witness their struggles with compassion while maintaining your own peace. The most remarkable transformation is how your energy now operates as a selective magnet. Instead of attracting anyone who needs inspiration or healing, you now specifically draw people who are ready for the next level of their own evolution. Your frequency has become so refined that it repels those seeking external salvation while powerfully attracting those committed to internal transformation. This magnetic shift means that new people entering your life arrive with a completely different energy than past connections. Instead of needing you to fill their emptiness, these individuals bring their own fullness to share in mutual exchange. Instead of seeking you as their teacher, they come as fellow students of consciousness, ready for collaborative growth. The contrast between these new connections and past relationships is so stark that you finally understand why previous attempts at deep relationships felt like pushing water uphill. You were trying to force connection with people who weren't energetically ready for what you naturally offered, while the right people simply weren't in your field yet. Now synchronicities flow effortlessly because you're aligned with your authentic frequency rather than trying to accommodate others' limitations. The right people, opportunities and experiences appear with perfect timing because you're no longer scattered across misaligned connections that prevent clear manifestation. Your magnetic field has become so powerful that you don't need to seek, you simply need to maintain your authentic vibration and allow what belongs to you to find you. This shift from seeking to receiving represents the completion of a major spiritual initiation that prepares you for the next phase of your soul's mission. The circle closes, but the spiral continues upward. You are no longer the lighthouse guiding lost ships. You are the admiral of a fleet of awakened souls, each captain of their own vessel, navigating together toward horizons of possibility that can only be reached by those courageous enough to leave familiar shores behind.